Dragon Stalker, Crypt Stalker, Demon Stalker, Rift Stalker, Grown Stalker, Crypt Stalker, Scourge Stalker, Wind Runner. I'm a pony, elite skilled hunter. A death dealer, a life stealer. That's just the cost of being awesome.
Welcome to episode 242 of the Hunting Party Podcast. I'm Dark Brew from thebrewhall.com and the Brew Hall on Twitter.
I'm Delirium from Thrill of the Wild and at Delirium Hunts on Twitter.
Right. Today is Sunday, July the 24th, 2016, and we are broadcasting live on twitch.tv. You can participate in the live chat room where our lovely moderator, Ali Saunders, is there to take your questions. And we have a great show planned for you today. So joining us this week is the team from Ask Mr. Robot. We've got Swol and Zoopercat here. And they've developed an amazing simulation tool just in time for Legion. So we're going to talk with them in a minute and see what we can do to use it to make hunters great again, as it were. So welcome to the show, by the way, Swole and Zoopercat. We're so happy to have you back again.
Thanks. It's always fun to be here.
Yeah, great to be here again.
Cool. So before we get into that discussion, just a couple tidbits of hunter news to mention to you guys out there. Obviously, the pre-patch dropped on Tuesday, so everyone's had a chance to play with all the major hunter changes. So we're not going to rehash all of that right now. But one of the things we talked about was one of the new pet families, the oxen and the scale hides. They were bugged and they didn't have any. They were lacking a basic attack, so there's really no point to taming them. Or if you did, you weren't going to get much value out of them. That apparently has been fixed with one of the hot fixes that came out this week. So feel free to get your oxen and scale hides. There was another bug fix. The visual for the glyph of Skull's Eye now properly disappears when the buff runs out. Although I don't know if you can actually get the glyphs right now. I don't think the glyphs are available. Do you know that, Delirium? I don't think they are, correct?
I have not been able to log in yet.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure the new glyphs aren't available from anywhere. But what is available, though, Bendek found this out. If you go down to Sholazar Basin, there's a vendor there who will sell some of the abilities, such as the the manuals, like the pet training manual, which can teach your pet the fetch ability, the pet training manual for play dead, and there's one, the Art of Concealment, which gives you the aspect of the chameleon, which is makes you untrackable for a minute, which was like the old aspect of the beast. And then I think there's a Hunter's Call, which is a toy that summons a small beast to follow you around for 15 seconds on a 30-second cooldown. So I don't know exactly where in Sholazar Basin it is. Probably the Nezingwari camp, I think. But 50 gold each for those. So, you might want to fly down there, pick them up, and I don't know if you haven't gotten Loquanahawk or King Crush or something. Maybe you'll get lucky and find them lurking around. So really, that's it for basic hunter news, other than the pre-patch stuff. But like I said, we've got guests here today, the team from Ask Mr. Robot, who developed this great simulation tool. I've had a chance to look at it a little bit. I don't know, have you played around with it much, Delirium, at all?
Yeah, I got to play with it quite a bit, and I'm pretty excited, especially about the wiki aspect of it, which is perhaps the whole point of it.
Okay.
I think it gives a lot of opportunity for non-traditional theory crafters to really get involved now, so I'm looking forward to hearing more about it.
Yeah, we'll talk about that. So why don't if you guys could just give us a brief overview of what the simulation is for those who don't know, and talk a little bit about what sort of prompted you to design it, because I think the timing is perfect, because I think we're sort of lacking in those kinds of tools. So what's this simulator all about?
All right. Do you want to take that, B?
Sure, I can take that one, because all the oh my God, people know my real name. Because all the hunter specific stuff, Soul's our expert. Yeah, so basically we've done a lot of stuff on our site, with like the stat weights and stuff, and how to get stat weights. You use simulation, and so we had a bunch of programs kind of running in the background to like generate these weights. And the interface was SimC, some of them were our own. And I don't know if any of you remember, way back when we first launched, we actually launched a Death Knight and Druid simulator. Like that was our first product, and then we changed it into the optimizer. So we kind of had this like 2010, I know, how long ago is that? And so we've kind of had like some of that code sitting around, we've morphed it to just work on stuff on the back end. And so what we've kind of done is, with this expansion, we always have a downtime, between expansions, and we're like, let's see if we can bring this simulator, this code we have in the back end to the public, because it's pretty awesome, and we wanted to solve some of the problems that currently exist, right? And one of those is like, as a non-coder, I can't go into SimC to verify something. It's really hard for me to do it, and I always bug our developer to look at it for me. And so what the wiki does is, the idea is it kind of like opens it up, right? It's like anyone can look, and even me, a non-coder, can look at the wiki and be like, oh yeah, okay, I see what they're doing. That's pretty awesome. And so that's kind of the big thing we had to figure out first. Can this be done? Because the wiki powers the entire simulator. So what happens is, you see all the wiki, everything's verified, and you can change something. If you're like, you know what, I want to change it. I want to see what happens if, Blizzard made this double the multiplier or whatever. And then you can just run it. Everything on the wiki runs the simulation, which was pretty cool, pretty hard to do, but we got it figured out. And then it's web-based. So we just really wanted to like open it up. How many times do you ask a question on a forum and everyone's like, go sim yourself? And you're like, I don't want to. I've been there. I don't want to. Well, now what we've done is it's like you literally type your character name in and you press a button. It's just as easy as optimizing. So we wanted to make it more accessible. So that's kind of how this thing developed. It's only been publicly available for a month now, and we already have like 100,000 people, having fun with it. So we're pretty excited at the adoption rate, and a lot of the top theory crafters are using it and making rotations. So the project so far has been a huge success. So we're pretty stoked going into Legion to open this up to even more people.
And so with the pre-patch out now, does it work with that version of the game? Was it really tailored towards Legion and being max level 110, right, and the artifact weapon and all of that stuff?
Yeah, so that's a really good question. So we actually, I feel bad saying this because we really care about pre-patch, right? We're here to optimize you. We really want to help. But for the simulator, since it was a new simulator and we knew we wouldn't be supporting Warlords, we just went straight into Legion. So you can kind of play around with a 100 character if you want, but it's only going to be marginally useful because we don't have like the tier 18 Warlord set bonuses coded in. We don't have the Warlord's trinkets coded in. So if you're like, oh, I'm going to see how much damage I do with my tier 18 set bonus, it's like, no, 0 damage. So those kinds of things aren't going to be super useful. But if you're looking at pure Legion stuff and Legion gear, we have all of that in. So Swol basically goes in and like has like a triple check process. He like looks at the item databases, looks in game, and then compares it to like other tools and theorycraft out there to make sure we have all the right data. So he's the one who's been getting all the legendaries in, the trinkets in, the set bonuses in. And yeah, so all the Legion stuff is what we're really focused on. So we're pretty excited. So it's pretty fun.
Yeah, and that makes sense, right? And it's not that long of a wait, until Legion drops anyway. We're just over a month out at this point, in which case we'll be all in the beta, and everyone's going to be leveling up and so forth. So it'll even be a while before we start getting into that raid mode, I think, when people really want to start using it. But
yeah, we wanted it out early for like the like all the theory crafting, right? Because that's what goes on right now.
And it works without a maxed out artifact, obviously. Like it does. I think it technically would work even without an artifact, but since everyone's going to have one, we didn't really test that a whole lot. But your ult might not have an artifact right away or something like that, or your second spec. So it'll work without an artifact, but we just didn't have time to put in all of the set bonuses for Warlords of Draenor and then make a rotation that works with all the set bonuses.
Right.
And so in the beginning, you mentioned that this was sort of wiki driven, and I think Delirium, you were playing around with that. So how does that work in terms of controlling what goes in and comes out of it?
So Swol does like all the work on that. I know the general stuff, but did you want to talk about that a little bit?
Sure. If I understand, you're asking kind of
I mean, it's
how do
like
you
sort of
decide what's in the public version of it?
right, the public version, and people can input. So how do you prevent someone who's like, you know what, my class is great, but maybe I could trick Blizzard into thinking it's not so great, so we can get some buffs here and there, and
Right.
trolling it that way. Yeah.
Yeah. So the public version isn't directly editable by anybody except us right now. Anybody who wants can clone it and start messing with it, and then you can immediately run a simulation off of your private version whenever you want. Since it's still a beta, we don't have the controls all implemented yet, but what we're going to do and have done by the time Legion is live is we're going to have some sort of way for you to merge your private version with the public version. So when we put out an update for the public version, you can then, it'll give you a little report of what's different, and then you can decide to keep your private version of, say, a spell you changed, or merge or take the public version of the spell you changed. And then eventually we'll also have a way for you to submit a change to be included into the public version. And then, we don't, like, if you fix something or find something wrong, and you can just submit it and we can say okay instead of having to redo everybody's work.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And eventually we may need, we've talked about the idea of there being some moderators that could have full access for different specs if somebody was so interested. If somebody approaches us wanting to do that, that's something we've considered also. But that's generally how it works. Right now, there's just a public version that we keep up to date. You can make a copy at any time, and we're going to make tools so that your work you do doesn't get blown away when we update
right.
the public.
Yeah, and then to put in perspective, what we, what by we I usually mean Swol does is, like the patch will happen, right? There'll be a patch, and usually within 24 hours, he gets everything updated for every class, and that includes like verifying everything in game. So right now what we do is we do it fast, and it's super accurate. And so, we want to put these controls in for people to submit changes. Right now it's like a 24-hour turnaround, but say the community really starts using this, submits changes, maybe it's an hour turnaround. That would be pretty cool. So, but since we get it done so fast right now, those controls are lower in the priority list. If they were taking us weeks to do, it would probably be higher on the priority list. But it actually is pretty fast to do all this, which is pretty awesome.
Yeah, that is awesome, and especially with the fact that the beta is still ongoing. I mean, how hard is it to? It doesn't sound like it's very hard for you to keep up. I mean, right now we're in a period where the frequency of changes seems to be a lot greater than it would normally
right.
be. And so has that been a challenge at all? Or it doesn't sound like it. Sounds like as soon as the patch goes up, you're able to get the data and send it out there.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't take that long. Sometimes they'll put in a change that's pretty significant, so it takes a little while. Usually we can get everything done in a day or so. It's been challenging in that every time they put out one of these patches, I have to spend a day doing the patch, and then I don't get to spend a day making better rotations and finding all the bugs. So, it's like, yeah, we get the patches done in a day, but then it kicks everything else down the road another day.
Yeah, and I feel like the rotations are what would really benefit from like the community. Right now the way we've done rotations, Swol's working on them. If you see a template rotation, it means it's like our first pass, right? And it definitely is not optimized. But if you see one that says default, it means it's pretty good. It's still the patch, so of course it's still going to be changing and improving a little bit, but it's pretty solid. But then what we've done is, say somebody makes their own rotation, they can share it. And so then when they share it, so say I make a really awesome hunter rotation because, it's been 6 years since I've played a hunter, so I'm pretty good at it. and I share it with you. Once you add it to your list, anytime I update mine, yours is automatically updated too. So it's kind of cool because then it's really easy for the community to like just share whatever they want. And people can subscribe to their favorite hunters and get automatic updates on the rotations. So I feel like that's where we really benefit from the community, the community participating. We can handle most of the data stuff, but the rotations, having more people and more ideas making these rotations, people play differently. So I think a lot of different options would be pretty cool.
And that's interesting about the rotations too. And I don't know, what has your experience been with this, Delirium? I mean, so I guess my question here would be, I mean, are you just like popping in your character and pushing a button and finding out like what your maximum potential is, or is it really more to it than that? Like, I mean, how is it sort of meant to be used, and then how should we interpret the results from when we go in there with our characters?
Well,
that might be a little bit too broad, perhaps, of what I'm asking. But
I think I know what you're asking. Maybe.
I mean, is it going to tell me what the best rotation is going to be for my character, or is there going to be me sort of fussing around saying no, don't use this ability, or changing the priorities and things like that?
Well, the simulator doesn't figure out the rotation for you. You give a rotation to the simulator. So, theory crafters are the ones who are going to mess around with the rotations, find the one that gives the most damage. I've been working with, I've been posting on some boards with some hunters, going back and forth with some of the rotations, and so the simulator is going to tell you how much damage a rotation does, and then you can tweak the rotation to figure out how to get more theoretical damage. I think one of our big plans with our simulator is we don't think that you should base all of your theory off of hitting a target dummy, basically. So we're putting in boss scripting. So it's going to be, how much damage do I do on a fight like Archimonde or a fight like Iskar? And you might even end up using different rotations depending on the fight, which I think, most people will say, all right, yeah, SimC says use these stats, and that's against a single target. But then everyone knows, hey, against an AoE fight, you're going to use different trinkets, or you're going to use different talents. Mm-hmm. So that's one thing we really wanted to include in this simulator, make it really, really easy.
Yeah, and the other thing we want to do to is answer questions, right? Like, if you've settled on your rotation, this is the best rotation for this boss, and you might want to say like, well, what are the best talents for this boss, or what are the best trinkets? Our plan with the simulator is to make it so easy that anyone can come to the site, and there's like a button that says, what are my best talents for this boss, or something that simple. You click it, and then the simulator tells you, and it's not just the best talents. I don't know if you've followed some of the Blizzard Watch articles I've written. It's like, what if of the 3 talents, 2 of them are only 0.5% apart? We can show you that, and then that way you can decide, well, okay, this one's 0.5% better, but I just really like this other one so much better, and you can make an informed decision of what you're giving up. Or maybe it's 5% different, and you're like, whoa, no, I'm not switching down for that.
And that's a question too, right? I mean, and that's going to vary by person to person. I don't know, but how much of a variance does there need to be? 0.5% seems kind of small to me, and if I'm more comfortable with talent A over talent B, and there's that small of a difference, well, I may stick with the one that goes lower because I'm more comfortable with it. I'm actually more proficient with it, and
exactly.
if I go to the other one that's mathematically a little bit higher, but maybe it just throws off my timing elsewhere, and I'm actually doing worse, or I'm not getting that benefit from it. So it's not really worthwhile. It looks smarter on paper, but
right. And that's one of the things we want to do is like, right, we just want to give people that information, which is something that's totally missing right now. because you really need a simulator with all the different bosses and stuff to kind of figure this out. And so that's one of the things we really want to start bringing forward to people, and also just making it really easy. Just you push a button and you get a bunch of answers. So we plan to kind of have like, I guess, like canned question and answers that, the most popular things people start asking, instead of making you set up a simulator that way. Our hope is that we set it up that way for you, pull it into a button that says, tell me the best trinkets, and you click it. And then we run, like we already set up a thing that says, okay, here's their gear, run a simulation with trinket A, trinket B, trinket C. We run, 6 different simulations, whatever it needs to be done, and then we just spit out the answer for you. So we really want to like just open this up to make it easy and accessible for people to answer these questions for themselves.
And then with the boss scripting, like you said, what is your plan for that? Are you planning to do all the like Legion raid bosses in some manner? Is that even possible? Or are you just trying to find some sort of general boss types,
Oh yeah, our plan is to have a script for each of the Legion raid bosses. We haven't finished the editor for boss scripts yet. We have something up there that works, but it's kind of hard to understand. But once we finish the editor, it'll be easier for people to tweak it. But we're going to have a script for each boss, and then we're still deciding, as far as gear recommendations on the website, what boss do we use? Or do we use the 3 hardest bosses and average it, or just the hardest boss and gear for the hardest boss, or something like that. Those are questions that we're still working on as far as gear ranking, but we're going to have a script for each boss, so you can really simulate whatever boss you prefer.
Right, and then each boss, people can change those just like they can for rotation. So somebody might be like, we use a different strategy, or so you might be able to manipulate it. Or maybe we have 2 different boss scripts. One is for melee, one is for ranged. So it's completely customizable. We'll have some defaults, but then it opens it up for people to play with it too.
Right. And things like, what if your raid team is top 100 and you beat fights 2 minutes faster than everybody else? You can change the length of the fight to match your group, because that's probably going to change how you gear significantly.
No, that's a good point. So Delirium, then, it sounds like this is something that you can find yourself getting lost in for for hours on end, just trying to. I mean, what have you noticed playing with it? And just in terms of hunters, like say a spec like Beastmaster or something, are you seeing a lot of variance in possible rotations depending on the talents that we're choosing?
Yeah, so far a lot of the testing has been looking at what's accurate to in-game, which even, just verifying spell data at the point. So I haven't actually gotten as far as rotational variance and how to do all that in Ask Mr. Robot's tools. But definitely getting lost is the key word you said there. I've spent hours and hours just looking through the spell list and trying to make sure I understand where they're pulling the different data from. And I can't remember if we've talked about this in the Discord channel or not. But so are you doing a large data dump for the various patches, or are you kind of inputting a lot of this yourself?
We're pulling the data from. We're pulling down all the spell data. We get it from WowDB. And then we run a difference between what we have in the wiki and the new spell data, and then we just go and update the ones that have changed whenever there's a patch.
Right, and then we do some in-game testing to like verify the in-game tooltips, which somehow is sometimes different. So
well, yeah, can't really do anything based on tooltips. We just make combat logs and make sure everything is adding up, right?
Yeah, there you go.
And so it looks like Synth just put up a picture of the aimed shot that we linked earlier. I don't know if you guys saw that link. Could we maybe we can go through that a little. So some of this is definitely accessible to the anybody without any coding. I think maybe if you know how to do Excel, then you can probably understand everything on this page. But there is some that looks a lot suspiciously like coding. Maybe you could go through some of that with us.
Yeah, you're looking at aim shot.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we couldn't make it so easy that anybody could. I mean, it still has to parse into computer code that a simulator can run. And to be honest, marksman hunters were one of the harder ones to do because of all the buffs they get. Like you cast a spell and then you lose marking targets, then you gain hunter's mark, then you get vulnerability when it hits, and so that one was actually one of the more difficult ones to do. So you get into some of the nuances of the order things happen in the simulator. But if you're looking at aim shot, the damage formula is pretty easy to understand. Hopefully, you got your 2.15, which is your multiplier on weapon damage. The weapon damage is a function, and that one, you see weapon damage false true. If you click on weapon damage, it'll take you to the formula for weapon damage, and this is just the weapon damage formula that every class in the game uses. Almost all abilities are based on a normalized weapon damage. So it doesn't matter what speed your weapon is. For a marksman hunter, it uses 2.8 as the speed when calculating the damage of your abilities. So this is just some formula that goes behind every weapon damage based ability. And the parameters are, is it your offhand? So it's always going to be false for a marksman hunter. Is it normalized? It's always going to be true except for auto shot. And then is it physical damage? And that just tells you if it should be reduced by the target's armor reduction. And there's also a total damage multiplier, which is kind of rolled into weapon damage. Total damage multiplier is just everything multiplying your damage. Buffs, versatility, artifact traits that buff the type of damage of your spell, and then specific artifact traits that affect specific abilities we just put right into the damage formula. And then the damage formula for aim shot has some extra variables going into it if you have the trick shot talent. So that's just saying, hey, if there aren't any other targets with vulnerable, increase the damage of this aimed shot by 15%. So that's what that damage formula is saying. It's saying, hey, it's a weapon damage formula, it's physical, it's normalized, it's increased by wind arrows and trick shot. And then the crit multiplier is affected by one of the artifact traits. And if you ever see artifact rule of 3, that's because for some reason, you've probably all noticed on some artifact traits, it goes 3, 6, 10 instead of 3, 6, 9. Don't know why they did that, but they did. So we had to put in a function for it. And then, the critical strike chance is affected by careful aim. And then the aimed shot AoE is when you have trick shot. This will make it hit any other vulnerable targets for 30% of the damage of aimed shot. And if you want to understand exactly how some of these more complicated spells work, you can just hit me up. I can show you how it works. I could give you a little primer on kind of how the simulator works in general. I don't think we want to get into that right here. But I can help. Once you understand a few of the basics, then it's a little easier to parse some of these wiki pages.
Right, and of course the click-through is going to be the biggest help to most users. So if I want to know how total crit damage multiplier works, I click on total crit damage multiplier, or how, as you said earlier, weapon damage works, etc.
Yeah, and I like to think of it as like, similar to like Excel formulas, right? Once you understand Excel type formulas, reading these I feel like makes it a little bit easier.
Right. And we purposely made everything a little more verbose, so that it's hopefully easier to follow. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. You were asking before about like playing around with rotations, like Beast Mastery. You mentioned. I've done a lot of playing around with Hunter rotations, and I think Beast Mastery is one of the most interesting ones because no matter what I have a basic rotation in there. No matter what I do, like adding anything complicated to that rotation lowers the damage. Like just using your abilities on cooldown does more damage than anything I can think of. I've tried everything. Maybe not everything.
There's a challenge there. Can you beat it?
I've tried like lining up abilities, like lining up cooldowns a little bit more, lowers your damage. I've tried, all sorts of things. I think Beast Mastery is probably the easiest spec in the game to play right now. Not probably, it is.
Yeah, I mean, certainly. Go ahead.
That's been a big complaint about hunters, especially Beast Mastery hunters, for quite a while.
I love it.
There's kind of the whack-a-mole situation.
Yeah, and it's interesting to hear you say that too, because we've sort of talked about, and not that this is overly complex, but that there seems to be a lot of waiting, or we just sort of assumed anyway for like Bestial Wrath, and I we're pressing Dire Beasts, can reduce the cooldown on that by 15 seconds, I believe, right? I don't know if that's
right.
So. Yeah. And if you have that, so we talk about, well, Bestial Wrath is just about to get ready to come off cooldown, that it might be worth delaying casting the Dire Beast, just because you lose the benefit of that 15-second cooldown reduction. So I mean, have you tried to simulate that? I mean, and even with, say, doing something like that, it still lowers your DPS?
That I'm trying to think. Did I try delaying Dire Beast if Bestial Wrath is coming off cooldown? That one I haven't played around with as much. I could do it pretty quick though, but I'll try it out. I've tried, and let me pull up the rotation so I can remember. I was actually playing with this yesterday. And I've been playing a hunter a lot to get a feel for this, because I've heard a lot of people say negative things about the hunter changes. So I decided I would just start playing one.
Yeah, and we haven't parsed through all that. They've just been so huge. I mean, and it's not even just survival becoming a melee spec. I mean, it's just all across the board, all three. I don't think we've seen changes to this class to this degree since they took away mana and gave us focus. And I think that now pales in comparison to the to the level of changes that we've seen this time around. And no, not everybody. It definitely takes some getting used to. So, and there's somewhat of a learning curve, and it just feels very, very different. So a lot of people, I think, are just sort of in this state of shock at the moment, trying to figure out what's happened, what's different, why is this different?
Yeah. So I've found that you can get slightly better damage if you delay Bestial Wrath such that you can always get 2 kill commands during the duration. Not by a lot, but by a little. So that seems to always be worth doing. I haven't tried yet delaying. I have actually. I tried saying don't use Bestial Wrath unless you can use Dire Beast. That didn't help. So maybe you could use a little more complicated, like saying
it's kind of the opposite of that.
If the cooldown on Dire Beast is, say, less than 5 seconds, wait.
Yeah, in this case,
give that a shot and see if it helps.
Yeah, I mean, well, in this case, we're talking the cooldown of Bestial Wrath. If that's like less than 5 seconds, or I don't know if we'd have to be a 15-second. I don't know what the best window would be. So, I mean, if hitting Dire Beast is going to reduce the cooldown by 15 seconds, if you have 15 seconds or less, is it worth? Do you want to delay Dire Beast and just save it for after you cast Bestial Wrath?
Yeah, I'll play with that. I'll try it out. I'll add it in if it increases damage. But things like that are actually pretty easy to play with in the rotations. So that's kind of what I do a lot. Yeah. Beast Mastery Hunter was one of the easier ones to write. Marksman was one of the harder ones. Survival was actually fairly straightforward, but most people I've heard talking like the way that it plays. So
yeah, it's oddly been from what I've heard, people are the most excited about survival.
Except the people who are like, I played a hunter because I hate melee.
Right.
Yeah,
which
exactly.
they're not going to try survival. So.
And I still really haven't given it a good go. I definitely need to do that just because. But again, I much prefer ranged classes, ranged playstyle to melee. So I'm just not that enthusiastic. But I shouldn't just dismiss it without giving it a really good run through, because who knows, I may actually love it and just don't know it yet.
Yeah, I mean, it's still a melee spec. I've played it some. It's cool for a melee spec, but right, you have to like that to begin with. Good burst damage.
Mm-hmm. So, simulate the Sim 2, is it gonna? Now you guys have your own combat logging on your site, correct? I mean, remember, yep. So, are these two gonna integrate in any sort of way where you'll be able to pull data from like combat logs in as part of the simulation, or just make some comparisons between what you're seeing in a simulation versus, oh, here's a bunch of data that's what we're actually seeing happening in these encounters?
Yeah, we've actually been toying with some different ideas. It really comes down to, we've been running some tests and stuff to try to figure things out, what works, what doesn't. Yeah, so we're definitely looking at those sorts of things and what helps people the most, right? That's what it really comes down to, kind of like prioritizing some of that stuff. So that stuff's yet to be defined. But the idea is that the simulator can integrate with anything on the website. And so we have hopes to be able to do cool stuff with it.
Right. We have it planned. Like one thing that we think we're gonna do, I'd say, I don't want to give a % chance on it, but for the for the healing, we're thinking about for sure being able to. Overhealing is kind of a big deal for any sort of healing simulation you might do. Like, how much overhealing does stuff do? And instead of trying to simulate the health of all of your team going up and down, we might say, all right, import the overhealing I did from this combat log and just apply it as a mask to all my abilities and rank my gear based on that. Something like that we're thinking about doing.
Mm-hmm.
It wouldn't be hard to do. It would be really useful. It would really personalize the results to how you play, that kind of thing.
Right.
Not as useful for DPS, but just an example of something that we think we're going to do.
Yeah, so a lot of it's to be defined once we all start rating.
Yeah, but I mean, theoretically with the boss scripts, you could create a script that is really close to how your team's raids normally go for kills of certain bosses, and that's a good way to then get more realistic results from the simulator.
Right.
So you had mentioned you were talking about boss scripts and how long they would last. Is that done through actually defining the length of the fight, or done through defining the other damage done by other members of the raid in the simulation? Are you simulating multiple specs at once, or?
No, we're simulating one actor at a time. So the length of the fight is set, and the events that happen in the script are either happened at fixed intervals or intervals that are keyed to percent of the main boss's health. So then you set the length of the entire script explicitly, and then you can give it a plus or minus, say 20% or something like that, which is pretty typical for simulations, so that you don't ever really want to do all your iterations at the exact same length because you'll get weird things happening. Abilities will start lining up exactly one way, and it'll make certain values of haste look awesome. It would be really, really hard. It becomes a crazy rabbit hole if you try to simulate a whole bunch of different raid members and then give all the targets actual health and then track their health. It's like this rabbit hole that goes so deep that you'll never get out. So we had to limit it.
And with the sim so far, I mean, I don't know how much data you've collected overall. Are you noticing a lot of variances? I mean, how much is the gear and all the different gear levels that they have now influencing what you're seeing?
You mean as far as like the actual damage output?
Yeah, actual damage output, or maybe even impact what you might want to do rotation-wise, or the impact. Are we seeing different gear levels impacting rotations, or I'm just curious how some of that's playing out right now.
The most testing the main testing that I've done so far, or trends that I've looked at actually, are talents. I've looked at talents, like how balanced, like what are the best talents. I've looked at that a lot. I haven't done a lot of simulation yet across the different gear levels because the gear data has actually been really, really difficult to find or to figure out. It's, our other developer, Yellow 5, can explain it better than me, but actually figuring out how all the different, what item level of items you can get has been really hard. And we actually just got it in there like yesterday. So we have not done a lot of testing across gear levels yet. That's going to come in the next few weeks.
Yeah, and the other thing that we're working on that we'll have in the next few weeks are these, what we call batch simulations. And that's kind of what I explained, like for the talents, right? A batch simulation is basically, hey, here's 6 things I want to test, do it all at once. And so we have that coming very soon. And so once that's ready, it'll be much, much easier to do these things. So you could conceivably say something like, hey, run a character at these 3 different item levels and tell me what happens, or with and without a set bonus and tell me what happens. And so right now you have to do one, set up each simulation one at a time and compare your results on your own. But in a few weeks, those quote batch simulations, technical little term there, will do that for you. And so I think that's when we'll start really doing a lot of these answering these cool theorycraft questions.
Yeah, I think that's, it sounds to me like one of the more challenging things, especially when you start thinking about those legendary pieces of gear. I mean, what initially you're going to be restricted to one, and then eventually you'll be able to equip more than one as we go through. But
right.
Yeah.
And those can make a pretty big impact.
Survival really got the shaft on legendaries.
Oh, yeah, did they?
They're just not good.
Poor survival.
There's one, I forget what it's called. There's a ring that you can get for Beastmasters, which is pretty nice. I think it simulates what the that adaptation talent. Is that right, Delirium? I think we talked about that a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
Which is, that's I think that's the one a lot of people are eyeing and hoping somewhere it just falls in their lap sooner, is early on here.
The let's see, I'm trying to think. The a ring legendary. Oh, the Apex Predator's Claw. Where your pet gets the passive abilities of all pet specializations.
Yes, that one.
And deals 10% increase. Yeah, that one, I couldn't figure out. I put that in, but I have an open question on that one. Like, will your pet use Thunderstomp and Bite? It seems like it wouldn't have enough focus. Or will it prioritize Bite and not use Thunderstomp if it's spec'd Ferocity? Because it seems like it would actually lower its damage if it's snarfing its focus for Thunderstomp. So, but obviously I don't have it, so I couldn't test it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's a good question. I'm not sure on that.
Yeah, so that's there, and you'll see, like, if you go to a page on the wiki and in the comment it says to do, I'll have questions like that. If you ever find the answer, let us know.
Definitely.
Especially on items like I don't know until I test them.
Well, yeah, I was looking in one of your forums, whatever, in there under some of the known issues and so forth, and there was a couple of the items you had there for hunters. I don't know if they're still open questions or issues. There was one for survival on Talent Strike saying you didn't know what the proc chance for that ability is yet. And
yeah, I still don't know that one. Blizzard never answered me. It's not in the spell data.
is it? And I don't know if that's anything you have any sense of, Delirium.
Sorry, I was just looking through my notes. Say that again.
I was just looking at some of the known issues, like for example, Talent Strike, and you're saying that they don't know what the proc chance for that ability is. Is that anything that any of the hunters have figured out, or is that something you've even attempted to look at or thought of?
Yeah, I think I have that actually. I gotta find the spreadsheet.
Ooh, one knocked off the list.
All right.
Oh yeah, I see your list. Oh, I don't know anything about Harpoon. Bullseye I've got somewhere. Anyways, Apexis, you were mentioning the Apexis Predator's Claw. I think that's passive abilities only.
Is it? Okay.
Yeah, so I think sort of all pet abilities are passive in a way. You can leave on autocast, but I think it's referring to it only is applying to those abilities like to whatever.
Yeah,
like damage
White Collar, combat
yeah.
experience.
Yeah, it basically, it turns your pet into like a super pet, so you get sort of the benefits of being a ferocity pet, a tenacity pet, and a cunning pet, which is sort of like I was going to say the adaptation talent we have now, but no, it's the adaptation talent we had, a week ago. That is now gone.
So it's a lot like adaptation, but without Heart of the Phoenix, which gives you the quick res. Roar of Sacrifice isn't included in it. I don't think it has bullheaded either.
You have all ferocity pets have the Phoenix ability now.
Right. So if you take it that way.
Yeah. Got it.
And part of what I think we've sort of found out a little bit, at least, is the pets are right now a bit squishier than they seem to have been before. So having that just makes life a little bit easier. I don't know, it doesn't necessarily help you in raids or with your damage, but it sort of gives your pet some additional survivability that seems to be lacking a little bit.
Yeah, it's really annoying if your pet dies, like especially as Beast Mastery. It's like, oh, that's all my damage.
Oh yeah, especially that's what we were complaining about with the artifact, which we'll get with the pet you get from there. That was finally reduced, right? It was on a 2-minute cooldown if that pet died before you could call it again. It was ridiculous. I think
it was reduced. Yeah.
So now it's like 30 seconds. Right?
I think it's 30 seconds now, which still seems a bit long to me, but it's better than.
But it makes it meaningful in PvP.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's one of those things. They should just give it a cooldown in PvP. It shouldn't, or they should just make it not die in raids. It's not like you're gonna tank with it.
No.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, maybe.
But it just seemed like we're the only class that had that issue, right? Where part of your artifact weapon could essentially be nerfed in the course of a fight.
You're like, break your gun jammed. So.
And I guess simming pets is that wasn't challenging at all or too bad to do as far as like even Beast Mastery was concerned, especially with a talent like Dire Beast, or ability like Dire Beast, I should say, where you've got multiple pets funneling out.
It was challenging, won't lie. But, after doing demonology, where you summon literally over 250 pets in the course of a fight, Beast Mastery was actually tough because of the artifact active, the Thunder's, what do they call it? Titan's Thunder, where it makes all the pets start pulsing damage. That one was tough, but more, it's easy in concept. You press a button and your pets just start electrocuting everybody. But when you try to do it in a simulator, it gets really hard because it's like you got to know which pets do it, and only certain pets do it. And then it was bugged for a while in the game, so I couldn't test Dire Frenzy with it because it just didn't do it and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, we used Beast Mastery to figure out how to model pets in general, because Beast Mastery has all that special and unique stuff, like a pet that has a resource, and then you have a way to actually actively give your pet more resource back with buffs and procs. So it was actually pretty unique and tough to do.
And I think right now, my guess too is that's probably the spec that a lot of hunters are leaning towards initially. We'll see if that changes, but it's, as far as I can tell, I'm just talking to different people, that a lot of people are looking at Beast Mastery with being sort of the primary spec that they play this time around. So
yeah, I kind of like Marksman too. I guess a lot of people don't, but I'm also, I never really played a Marksman Hunter before they changed it. But as somebody coming fresh, who's probably going to play a Hunter in Legion, I was playing Marksman just in some BS raids. I don't know. I kind of liked them, but maybe it's because I don't know what they were before.
Yeah, I actually like the idea of marksmanship. I just think they balanced it poorly. So basically all of our talents make the core mechanics of marksmanship kind of superfluous. There's no the buffs don't make your core abilities more powerful than your talents, so they're always higher on the priority, and then you kind of start wondering why you're spending effort keeping up these buffs. So it's just a frustratingly poor reward system. But the actual action of it is kind of fun. Like actually doing it's kind of fun.
Like you're talking about, like aim shot just never really hits that hard.
Yeah, that's the basic. Like even when you're 3 stacks or the patient sniper buff.
Yeah, even when you take patient sniper, it's still better to just spam marked shot. So.
Yeah, that's how it goes.
Right. Yeah, I could talk all day about weird balancing things in the game right now. Like assassination rogues. Who's doing the math on that spec? It's so high. It's literally it is so far beyond every other spec in the game right now that it's really funny.
Is it? I mean, so it's just pulling ridiculous numbers compared to everybody else.
Yeah, we're talking. I've been simulating just on really low level, like the PvP template characters. Like a hunter will do around 140k, and then an assassination rogue in the same gear does 200k.
And that's basically what Roger Brown was on last week or 2 weeks ago. He was saying the same thing. Yeah, it feels silly to play anything but a rogue in their raid testing.
Yeah, rogues in general are just higher than everybody. For a while, survival was one of the highest.
Yeah, that was awesome.
They brought that back. Well, they had this awesome bug on the Dragon's Fire grenade,
right?
Where it didn't just dot the target you cast it on and then pulse damage. It dotted everybody, and then everybody pulsed damage. So in AoE, it was unbelievable how much damage it would do. And then explosive trap was doing so much of your damage if you talented for it. It was like dwarfing Mongoose Bite, which was just silly, even on a single target.
Which they said they wanted it to be viable in single target, and that's kind of it's always been the question there. Is it going to be, usable, or if it's going to be usable, it's going to be more powerful than other abilities. If it's not going to be usable, then nobody's going to take it. It's not going to be interesting.
Right. Well, I think they got it in a pretty good place now because it's still higher, like your highest priority ability, but its damage isn't like so high that it feels out of balance. I think they did a good job bringing that one back in line.
And then there'll probably be some rogue nerfs then, I suppose. I mean, that's usually the way this works, right? Something it shows up as too powerful, and then I guess it's just a question of when,
Right. Well, I mean, right now
it
Rupture,
happens. The house.
They're doing 55% of their damage with one dot, which is just silly. And they still have a passive 17% damage increase, like a hidden passive, Assassin's Resolve. It's like, well, there's an easy fix. Take it out. Like, why does the highest damage spec in the game passively get 17% extra damage? But who knows? I'm sure they have a process.
Hopefully.
Or maybe it's just the interns working on it.
Poor interns.
Well, we here on the Hunting Party podcast have decided to blame solar flare on everything, so
Exactly.
feel free to join us in that.
Okay.
So, are there other features and things that you're planning to do for the simulator once we get deeper into Legion, or right now you're just going to wait for the expansion to go live and then see what the usage is like, see how it plays out, and tweak some things here and there, or are there other plans for this, or do you feel like you have an estate that's pretty much where it needs to be and more or less complete at this point?
Yeah, I think we've got a couple of features coming out, like I said, like those quote batch simulations, and some niceties that we've been talking about. It's not going to change things dramatically, but it'll kind of focuses on easier to use than it already even is. And then I think a lot of it right before the expansion and right after the expansion is integrating it with other parts of our site. So maybe you can imagine we don't know yet. Can you imagine? We don't have the UI totally figured out, and we have about 5 weeks, but it's cool. This is how it goes every year. We always do awesome UI design, and by we I mean Swol. And we've got it mostly figured out, but we'll be integrating a lot of it. So maybe one of the things we do is like load your character, and you can hit a button that tells you your DPS. Like maybe we can figure out a way to do that and also keep it affordable, because the idea is we're keeping it all. We want to make it so that the average user can use this on the web and never have to download a client. But if you want to download the client and run like really intensive tests, go for it. And then it uses your computer instead of our servers. So I think a lot of it for the first couple of weeks after the expansion is going to be, integrating it with all of the different parts of our site. Because as you guys realize, right, it's like the simulator can power so many things, whether it's stat weights, gear choices, tell you your DPS, compare things to logs. So we think we have some cool ideas. We just have to see how they work out and how they scale. And on that note, though, to make sure it's clear, the simulator is free and is always going to be free. So anyone who wants to use it and stuff, it's pretty exciting. Simulate your character, get your DPS, run these questions, and then if, we might have some limits on things like, we're not going to let you run 2 hours of simulations on our servers. So for the people who are hardcore, then it's like just download the client and then it's still free, right? So we're pretty excited about all the different integrations we get to do to make it just super easy. So when somebody now says sim your character, oh, okay, I'll just click this button.
Right.
That's the hope.
Our main focus right now is making sure that it's accurate. It's a new tool. People aren't going to trust it because people on the internet don't trust anybody about anything.
It's true.
For good reason. So our main focus right now, and what I spend pretty much all day on, is looking for bugs and making sure that it's correct. So if anybody finds a bug, let me know. We'll fix it right away.
Yeah, I think most of the bugs you fix in like an hour.
Most bugs are really, really easy to fix.
Yeah.
So just point it out. And I've done my second pass through hunters already. I think they're, I'm never going to say it's 100% bug free because it is a simulator of a game that we don't make. So,
right.
Yeah.
But I think that you will be hard pressed to find any major bug in the hunters. And that's after we put out our next update, because I did have the max focus wrong on marksman and beast mastery hunters, which really made a big difference for marksman damage.
I'm sure.
Not having 100 focus instead of 120 really messed it up. Because I was playing, and this is where actually playing the specs helps. I was playing it. I was like, I have 120 focus, because there's no spell in the game or anything that says gives you plus 20 max focus. Survival only has 100, so I'm like, oh, they have 100. Guess they changed it for the 2 range specs.
Yeah, I'm not sure where that's just the baseline, or does it come from their part of their mastery, or if they just gave them 120. I don't know what differentiates the two, but I mean I know.
Or there's a
they usually
Warlords
have
of Draenor perk that they forgot to delete.
Yeah.
Well, I think that they surely mean for it to be 120 for marksman, because the aim shot costs 50, and it really doesn't play well at all if you can't store up a little over 100. Just the spec doesn't work. Beast mastery actually just doesn't even matter, because you're really focus limited anyway. You're just sitting around waiting for focus half the time. So having a higher max doesn't really help you.
I agree. And then, and it looks like too, well, maybe Delirium might be able to get you an answer to that Talon Strike and the bullseye here. So that'll
yeah, that'd be great.
help out a little bit too. So.
Yeah.
I'd be interested in how you figured out the Talon Strike. Maybe just a lot of testing.
A lot of testing.
Yeah, because it's literally nowhere in the data. Like, most proc chances in the game you can find, but for some reason that spell, nowhere to be found.
Also pestering devs.
Yeah, I've tried that, but they're so
Sometimes
busy
you get
now.
an answer, sometimes you don't.
Well, they had this great thread on the Battle.net forums where they were answering Theorycraft questions, and then they just got too busy since the expansion is getting closer, and now they don't answer anymore. But I posted that question 4 weeks ago, so it's in the queue.
All right, well, good. Well, we sort of come up on an hour here, so I think unless Delirium, you have any other questions for these guys, I think we'll call this one a show, and we'll come back in a couple weeks. But thank you both for coming on and talking about your sim. You're welcome to come on anytime, especially when maybe we'll get you on again, maybe once we're a little bit deep, once rating starts perhaps, and see how.
Sure, that'd be fun.
See what the usage is like, and see what kind of results we're getting out of your sim once it's like sort of in full production mode, as it was. I'd be curious to see that, because it's very cool. I mean, I played around with it a little bit, and like I said, you can get a lot of information out there, and we haven't even touched on some of the reports and all that good stuff. So that would probably be worth another discussion to talk. It's one thing to put in data; it's another thing to see what data gets spit out and how you can interpret that and do with it. But it's a cool site. I know for hunters, we've been looking for a tool ever since Female Dwarf retired from WoW and stopped maintaining her site. We had that was our primary sort of go-to tool, and we haven't had that now for a full expansion here. Yeah, it was good. It was always fun to plug things into that. It wasn't quite as robust as a full simulator, but just kind of gave you an idea of, given your current gear set and so forth, what you might be able to accomplish in theory. So.
Yep.
Okay.
Is there anything else you guys wanted people to know? Anything we should be looking out for?
That's really my domain, I suppose. Yeah, no, just keep an eye on it and play with it. And we've got a Discord channel. I can put it in this Twitch here, and if you guys have show notes and stuff, you can put it in there.
We will. Yeah, we'll absolutely add it to the show notes.
Yeah, and basically, like, if you have any questions or feedback, we've already changed a a couple of things. Like the way people were sharing rotations, we weren't really happy with because it was a little too cumbersome. And so we made it, that's how we came up with this like subscribe idea. So we're very curious on how people are using it. We love the feedback. If something seems like awkward or hard, tell us, because we're firm believers that if it's awkward or hard, it's on us, not on the user to learn. It means we have to, we have to design something differently, change the flow. So we definitely want to hear from everybody about those things. And then as far as like making rotations or simulators, I know simulator for some people, it's like, this big word, this kind of nebulous, like, oh, I don't do simulations. We made it really easy. If you're one of those people, definitely play with it. And I'd like to hear from you too, like what tripped you up. And if you have questions, just stop on our Discord and ask. Like, we are super friendly. No one has to feel silly about feeling like a noob, like, oh, I don't know how to change rotations. I've made some videos that give people a crash course. I'll be making some more. And we're just super friendly. We're not going to be like, oh my God, I can't believe you didn't figure it out. Like, we're going to help you. Like, we're all very nice people. So you don't have to worry about any of that. We really just want to open up, theory crafting, like empower everybody to kind of do their own theory craft and play with things and just get excited about these sorts of questions and answers.
All right. Well, excellent. Well, we look forward to Legion and look forward to going to your site and using this tool. So on that note, you have been listening to episode 242 of the Hunting Party Podcast. I'm Dark Brew from thebrewhall.com and the Brew Hall on Twitter.
And I'm Delirium from thrillofthewild.com and at Delirium Hunts on Twitter.
All right. Check us out on iTunes, YouTube, Stitcher, or add our RSS feed to your reader, and links are available in our show notes.
If you have a question or a topic you would like us to discuss on the show, email us at huntingpartypodcast@gmail.com or send us a tweet at huntingpartypod.
All right. Stay thirsty, my friends, and remember to drink your dark brew lager.
Siempre prestar la emoción de lo salvaje.
Hallie? Did she leave us?
For the Horde.
For the Horde. Or is it for Azeroth?
I want my cheetah back, Blizzard.
That's all it is now.
It is like a worthless spell. I mean, it's just like, oh, God.
My priest runs faster than my hunter. What is wrong with that?
That doesn't seem right.
It's not.
Well, good job holding that
Get
all
on
in
there,
for the
robot,
entire show.
Oh, man.
A life stealer, that's just the cost of being awesome sauce. A dues payer, a boss slayer, I rock out with my lockout I'm a hunter. Viper to cheetah to dragon hawk. No time to waste, cause I can jump shot. BM, MM, and SB. I can rock out any tree. Never worried about my threat, cause I've got FD and misdirect. Catching loose mobs in my traps. I never miss, cause I am hit capped. Cause I'm the hunter, not the marked. I'm the fighter, not the spark. I'm the kiter, not the kite. I'll top the meters every fight. Raiding and cave dealing death. Just me, my gun, and my trusty bed. Now let's begin with Illidan, Osirian, and Gil'jadan, Magdamar, Asgalor, Gruul, Cthulhu, and Razorgore, Onyxia to Ragnaros. Which one have we killed the most? Kel'Thuzad to Malygos. We even killed a Kama's ghost. Feels like we're getting close, all that running as a ghost. Yogg-Saron, Therian, Sartharian, Magthuridon, Sapuron, Lucifer to Sulfuron, Archon,